Vive la résistance!
Hello, Agent. This is Bastion, Central HQ. We hope this message finds you well. We have deciphered the intel delivered from Agent Lind, and now know our fate is secured. The secret war has begun. More updates to come soon. Hello, and welcome to a Hearts of Iron 4 Dev Diary. After that short introduction, we're going to be talking about the Intelligence Agency, which seems to be the core mechanic coming to La Resistance DLC. Now, this week's Dev Diary was quite short, so it's mostly going to be image based, but the reason I'm making this video is because there are a couple of things I wanted to talk about from it, which I think might be of some interest to you watching. So, as we can see here, you can create the agency, which is a sort of off-map system where, using a cost of civilian factories, which is basically the replacement for an economy, you can spend those civilian factories to create and build up this intelligence agency. Now, as you can see from the first image, there will be one big button at the top to create the agency. This will cost you 5 civs for 30 days. And then when you're creating it, you get to pick your own name, the advert there, which is not what we're going to be calling it. You can call it whatever you want, which is I'm sure where many memes will come from. And then 21 different insignias you can choose for your agency. You can see there, so I see German and British and Japanese, I think. I can see many and many a logo. So it's all up to you to pick what you want. I'm sure modding will allow you to pick even more over time. If we look closer onto the actual image itself though, you can see a few more of the mechanics. They've completely changed all of the icons there at the top for your decisions. You can also see the agency branches, which we'll come onto in a second. And just below that, at the bottom, you can see the operatives. Here we can see that there are 0 in terms of your agency cap, so I presume that's how many agents or operatives you can afford. 0 for being captured, because I believe being captured and having agents captured and stealing information and then capturing information through interrogations is going to be part of the game. And then at the end there, operatives who have been died. Well done. I'm getting a medal for that one. So going for those 5 agency branches, you'll find yourself on a screen much like this. So agency branches come in 5 particular branches: intelligence, defense, operations, operative training, and cryptology. Again, we don't actually know much about what each of these buttons do, but we can briefly assume what they go over from the 6 tidbits of information we've been given already. So, from left to right, economy and civilian will give you information based upon the enemies or selected nations details. This is the equivalent to the intelligence info you got when you clicked on the details screen of another country. So economy civilian, how many civs and mils they have. Army department will probably tell you their exact troop count. So it's usually that number that can sometimes say between 1 and 2,000 if you've got very low decryption. Naval department will do the same for ships, and Air Force will do the same for the Air Force. So pretty basic ones there. Defense appears to be the standard one that everybody should be going for if you make an agency, because it allows the enemy to have less buffs over you and knows less about you. It's kind of the safe pick. What's interesting about it is this comes with tiers, so you can see passive defense has 4 tiers and anti-partisan has 2. This makes me think of how in the research tab there were quite a few decryption texts, so I'm wondering if they've gotten rid of the decryption texts or changed them so the decryption texts instead allow you to unlock passive defense buffs. It's kind of a trade-off and it's a bit more complicated now. Time will tell. Operations are basically going to be the new spy mechanics in which you operate and do things abroad. Blueprint stealing I think is pretty obvious. That should be stealing techs, or at least buffs for techs. Portable radio, I'm not 100% sure what that could be. I know that invisible ink allows you to steal more intel through letters, so you'll generate more intel when active in a foreign country. Plastic explosives hasn't been announced, but if I was to make a guess, I'd say it allows your operatives to go into a foreign country and blow up a civilian factory or a military factory or a dockyard. I'm not 100% sure if you'll be able to choose which one, but I'm guessing that's the core component of plastic explosives. Suicide pills allows your agents to kill themselves, presuming they get caught, which means that the enemy will not have your intel having captured an agent. Operative training should allow your operatives to be, well, better trained. From the way I can tell, the operatives appear to work a bit like generals and sort of field marshals and admirals, in that you hire them at the bottom of the screen. The localized training center could be the equivalent to training your troops, in the sense that you're training up the operatives to work better on a mission. Commando training could also be a more direct buff for this. Interrogation techniques would make sense to be able to get that intel from those captured agents, assuming they haven't got suicide pills and killed themselves already. Diplomatic training's quite interesting because it appears they're slightly changing the way you can buff your diplomatic pressure on other nations, including foreign trade, which means you might be able to negotiate to trade off more resources with one nation, or be able to not just have a single button that says improve relations. Psychological warfare seems to me, if I was to make a passing judgment on it, the ability to sort of oppress the civilians of a foreign country or bring them down, which, if my mind, if I was to add that as a mechanic, would reduce the stability of a nation, which could be interesting if you wanted to get a nation like England or America to have low enough stability to cause them to have a civil war. Food for thought. Lastly, we have the cryptology department. Now, the first cost is 8 civs to form the department itself, which, well, that's quite the jump. And I believe, because this is so expensive, this is supposed to be the equivalent of Enigma, which is your base encryption, which allows all of your information to be as hidden as possible. But because there's so many buttons here, and they all have like 2 and 3 tiers, this feels like this is going to be a larger mechanic than just clicking the button and you have higher encryption. Lastly, at the end here, we had a small tidbit about becoming the Spy Master. So when you're in a faction, the buffs of an independent intelligence agency will be slightly less than if you, for instance, pulled all of your faction's intelligence agencies together and had one specific Spy Master. This is the person who has the most unlocks on their agency and has been chosen to be the Spy Master. There's no faction takeover mechanic. It appears to be that the leader has to officially agree for you to take over, and it's quite cheap. Now the dev diary is over, it brought up 2 points I wanted to discuss. The first one being how the agency branch upgrades require 5 civilian factories, ranging from 5 up to 15. Now, to initially create an agency, this appears to be a momentary 5 civilian cost before it has none. Now, this may not seem like a lot, but it does have some impacting figures. So, if you are a country that starts with 5 civilian factories, in 1936 January, from what I can tell, you can instantly create an agency. These countries, just to name a few, that have 5 civilian factories to start off of, are Peru, Argentina, India, South Africa, Venezuela, Belgium. I mean, some of them are fine picks, but honestly, the likelihood that I'd see Peru forming its own intelligence agency is quite odd, especially when they can so quickly form Bolivar's empire. I'm not complaining as per se, I just find it an interesting mechanic that I hope they have considered beforehand. Of course, it would completely destroy their economy and build-up. The second aspect of this is that, does the cost become reduced, or does it entirely vanish after 30 days? Each branch upgrade takes 30 days to complete, but if after those 30 days those 5 civilian factories have gone, all you need is 5 civs and you just stay on that. You know, you chain up economy civilian, passive defense, blueprint stealing, invisible ink, naval department, army department, and you just continually go through them every so often. Or are they like decisions in which you occasionally pick intelligence, click on it, and then maybe in a year's time you have to renew it to be able to do it again? The thing is the mechanics of how these actually work appear to be uncertain at times. And now it's time to look at some comments by Dan Lind. Can you upgrade all branches of the agency, or are some mutually exclusive? No, but some require technologies. Is the agency based off map? Yes. Can you turn agents into double agents? He said we'll be covering agents in the future, but the smiley face makes me think that the answer is probably yes. The automation option, in case that you don't want to invest in the spy ops game, is to let the AI go as the spy master, and then you just go into defense. Will some of the text be changed, such as engineering research? Some of the texts are going away, and some are being changed for the crypto stuff, but we don't know enough yet. Okay, that's everything for quite a short dev diary, but I hope it got across the message about the new intelligence agencies. Subscribe if you want to hear more, and bye!